Hi, Bob.
Adam, how does this sound?
Great.
You sure? Because I have it on a phone with a little boost.
Well, I always appreciate a little boost.
It's all right. Okay. Might get a little feedbacky, but what can I tell you?
Well, obviously, the first thing I think most people are going to be interested in how you think Radio Unnameable came out. What do you think of the movie?
Oh my God, I'm thrilled with it. I'm ready to do 5 or 6 different versions of it.
Yeah, actually, I had heard that you were quite the fan of the movie and that you sat through it many, many times.
No, I think it's really brilliant filmmaking. But I'm quite serious about the second thing I said too. I mean, I kept saying to Paul and Jessica, "Is this going to be in? Is that going to be in?" And they would tell me, "Well, it's only 90 minutes," and it actually turned out to be 87. So it's 50 years plus that are being condensed into that time, and there are many, many other what I consider high moments.
Of course, the film can't fit everything in there, but I'm wondering, surely you can see the movie at times through the eyes of the audience.
There are lots of high moments that weren't recorded. They used the archives mostly to make the film, photographs and tapes, and some slight, telling of a tale by me. But there are so many things that I don't know that I remember on and off the air from that time that have that aren't showing up in the film. I mean, I don't know. It's about the radio program. There are things that happened behind the scenes at the station that are barely mentioned in the film that are very important. I thought, things happen to other people's programs.
The filmmakers have to work within a construct where they're making a film for movie theaters and festivals and of course, to go on a DVD, etc. So they have 90 minutes to tell their story. Given that, do you think that they were successful?
I'm very happy with what they managed to put together. It has a beginning and a middle and end, and it has a great deal of tension, some violence, some sex. It's great. And wait till you see the DVD, because it has hours more of material.
That's great. I can't wait for the DVD, and of course there's a solution for all those other stories and all that extra content that exists. Can you describe your experience the first time you saw Radio Unnameable, what that was like?
Well, I've been watching little bits of it over 5+ years. So when I first saw it, I saw it without music, and I thought it didn't quite work. And then when they added the music and they did some color matching, I was really taken with what great artists they are.
I wonder, as I sit here and we talk, you've been doing your show for over 50 years now, and I'm wondering, over the course of making this documentary and as a result of it, has it had any impact on the way you approach your work?
That's an interesting question. I sort of thing I'd have to think about for a while. But, I incorporate telephone calls, and I'm thrilled at I haven't really heard a negative comment. No. The only, one negative comment I heard today was from the program director of WBAI, and he said in his Australian accent, it left out a lot of stuff about you. So that kind of, it's true. Doesn't have very much about the acting that I've done or the yippie years, or people came through sometimes right from the airport, coming in, the Grateful Dead came right to the station from the airport, and they were on the air with me for an hour or two, and then they went to their hotel rooms. Doesn't have the people who came up, some of them very well known, who just said, I don't want to be on the air, I just want to sit here and hang out and watch. Because people came in and felt that they had a real vital community to talk to. The film is really, it's not really so much about me as about the archive and about the audience.
But years before social media ever existed, you were in your own way providing a social network for people through your radio show, though I understand you never really liked to be in the role of a leader.
Right. I had enough to do defending the program from other people at the station who thought I would let somebody go on too long, or some of the musicians spent more time tuning than playing because they were nervous, or there would be internal criticism, and I had to deal with that. And then there was the perpetual fundraising. It might have been a whole different world if if it was on a station where they took advertising.
The documentary that Paul and Jessica made about you, Radio Unnameable, points out and depicts a lot of internal strife at WBAI the years you were there, and also clearly sympathizes, or is critical of, is a better way of putting it, the fact that since the 80s, you basically, when you returned to the station, that you've been a personality there, but you've been a volunteer and haven't been paid for years as a on-air personality.
Right. Well, people who work should be paid. That's, if there's any value being derived from your labor, you're entitled to a cut of it.
Absolutely. What?
And when did you begin this show?
From, say, 63.
That's when I started, as a human being.
Wow. Where are you from?
I'm from the mean streets of Forest Hills, Queens.
Yeah. Now, could it be that your parents listened?
It's quite possible.
So is it possible that you were conceived while I was on the air?
That certainly could answer a lot of questions about my personality. A few minutes ago, you mentioned that people would come on and do things as sort of mundane as even tune their guitars, and then I'm thinking, wow, there are tons of people out there who would love to hear their guitar heroes or their favorite musicians tuning their guitar. That would be a pleasure to hear them do that. So
you're absolutely right. I went to a series of classical concerts when I was in high school, and the excitement of the moment when the musicians came out and they began to try to get in sync with each other and pitch. It's really like a breathtaking moment.
Oh, I love that sound of all the orchestra tuning moments before the concert begins. Oh, there's nothing like that. That's true. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Bob, you've been to quite a few screenings of Radio Unnameable and done your share of Q&As afterward, and I'm wondering if there were any especially memorable experiences that you encountered during those question and answer sessions.
Well, yes, people who listened over the years, people who I didn't know were listening.
Well, how was that experience meeting some of your old listeners?
I don't know. It was always a surprise to me when someone brought up something that had happened that I had almost forgotten about myself. You know, I met someone who said, this is something in the film about a guy who wanted to commit suicide, and you kept him on until the police managed to get him to a hospital and revive him. But you saved my life because you talked about burning draft cards. So he was saying that because I was against the draft, he thought about it, and it probably saved his life. So that was pretty exciting to me. And there's another time, too, There's something happening out here in Staten Island that, if you don't mind my taking... I don't know how much time we have, but...
Go for it, please, by all means.
I'd like to tell this little story. Staten Island is sort of a gateway to New York City, and a lot of truck traffic goes through here, right? And one time there was a truck that turned over, and about 20 turkeys escaped from the truck, living, breathing turkeys. And they scattered, and they went into the woods, which abound on Staten Island. And they not only did they survive, they had probably been raised in pens all their lives, but these turkeys had enough knowledge to, find worms that weren't delivered to them, and they prospered. And they had little turkeys, and you see them in some parts of Staten Island. The sidewalk is like covered with turkey poo, and you see turkeys in branches of little trees in front of houses. They're all over certain parts of Staten Island. Well, the United States Department of Agriculture is planning a slaughter of the turkeys. And, I have funny feelings about that. I eat meat, but one time when I was at BAI in the early days, when we were, very creative about ways to raise money, we raffled off a turkey. A live turkey. You can have a turkey for Thanksgiving, contribute $1 and we'll pick one, whatever it was. And they brought the turkey to the control room. I was an announcer in those days, and I just was sitting in the control room, and they brought this crate in with the turkey in it, a living turkey. And I shared this little tiny control room with this turkey for about 5 hours when I was doing my announcing shift. And every time I opened the microphone to say, "You've just heard Sibelius's whatever it was," the turkey would go, "Oh, oh, oh," and I had the feeling that he was saying, "Come help, save me, save me." And I just thought about that a lot. So
I wonder what
they're going to slaughter those turkeys because they say they can't even be fed to people because there's no way of knowing whether they're infected with avian flu or whatever it is. But that's terrible.
This is weighing on your conscience quite a bit.
I mean, I might start talking about that on the air,
I don't know what the rest of the country is going to make of this, but it's so hard to fathom that this is happening. But you can count on me to be your advocate and to help you fight the good fight, Bob. And tomorrow, as I drive through Staten Island on my way to New Jersey, I'm going to keep an eye out for these turkeys.
The turkeys, right. It's in, what section? Oh, they may be spraying tomorrow. That's another horror. And that's probably why they're getting rid of the turkeys. They spray around the turkeys. People will see all these dead birds flying around. And they'll think, oh, my God, what's it doing to me?
Maybe we need to collaborate on and write a couple of folk songs or something like that. Get the word out.
There's a song, Turkey in the Mall. The biggest shopping mall on the planet was built in Staten Island at one time. It's no longer the biggest, but it's definitely worth seeing. And we have, on Staten Island, we have a Buddhist museum that the Dalai Lama came and visited and said, wow, you have some stuff that I wish I had.
Staten Island needs a better publicist because we don't usually get the good news about Staten Island. Usually hear critical things about Staten Island.
Well, it's the lowest taxes in the city of New York, property taxes. So in a way, it's a good thing that people have, and city workers live here. A lot of police live here. Transit workers, sanitation people. Staten Island is, and it's also sort of mobbed up. So it's interesting.
Well, I was hoping to come out there originally and talk to you in person, but it turned out that this was terrific, Bob, and I really appreciate it, and I thought it went really well, and I just was a pleasure talking with you.
Well, it's great. You gave me space, and you let me rant.
Well, I really appreciate all the time you give me today. I hope one day we can meet in person, whether it's in Staten Island or maybe at the studio at WBAI or where have you. But I think this went great, and it was just such a pleasure. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, Bob. And I just continued success with your show as well, with your show Radio Unnameable, as well as with the documentary, Paul and Jessica's amazing documentary, also called Radio Unnameable. I hope you thought it went well. I hope you thought it was. I thought you found it to be a pleasurable experience too.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Adam, and let's talk some more. Bye now.